Hey guys, this is going to be another kind of weird video for me. I'm going to go over a few people that I think I should talk about, but I don't want to spend like 20 minutes kind of like breaking down every single thing that's going on with them. So I guess like what I want to do with this channel is basically I want to just talk about whatever it is that I feel I should talk about, whether that is something relatively minor that only appeals to me, or whether or not it's something having to do with other content creators. So, until I get like a better setup for all this, I mean, I do have a better microphone I could be using, but hey, I think right now all I really need to do is actually just kind of let my voice be heard, and whether or not that's enough, we shall see. But anyways, so I guess I'll start with, and this name is going to kill me, Vitaly Zdorovetskiy? Jesus Christ, I butchered that name. Anyways, so Vitaly is a Russian, I would say he's a nuisance streamer, but he didn't actually start out that way. What this guy does now is he basically goes around playing pranks and trying to annoy people and get their reactions on stream. Very similar to Johnny Somali, which I'll be talking about in this video as well. But Vitaly, he didn't start out that way as just being somebody who's going around trying to annoy people. He actually started out going after PDF files. God, I have to say it like that because otherwise the video is automatically downranked. God, YouTube can be so frustrating sometimes. But he would actually go around and expose people who were going after kids, and he would also try to raise awareness for like different causes around the world. And he started to go off the deep end a few years back, where he decided to raise awareness for the Australian bushfires. And apparently, this idiot thought the best way to do that was to climb to the top of the Great Pyramid in Giza. Out of all things, oh my god, it's absolutely ridiculous, like what these people do. One, you're not supposed to do that, and I swear it would be absolutely hilarious and fun to do that, but the stones in the Pyramid of Giza are not meant to be walked on or climbed like that. You can do damage to the actual stonework. Now, if you're not aware, long time ago, and this was throughout different eras, the Pyramid of Giza had been, well, scrapped basically. There used to be smooth stone that was placed onto the pyramid to make the side completely smooth, and along with the two other pyramids that are also right next to it. And then there was a fourth pyramid built on a mountaintop nearby, who was actually created by the son of the guy who built the Great Pyramid. Now, he built his on the hill, it was originally said, because he was estranged from his family, but it's more that the resources at the time were so limited that it was better for him to build on an already existing mountain to already add to the height of his pyramid. So it would be easier for the people and less expensive. Anyways, a lot of the stones had been removed. That fourth pyramid I'm talking about was almost completely annihilated, and all the stones were used nearby, while all the facing stones on the Pyramid of Giza have been removed. Anyways, little history lesson for you there. But now, recently, Vitaly decided the good idea would be to go to the Philippines and start messing around with their people. Now, if you don't know the history of the Philippines, there is, well, the Philippines was colonized by, I believe, yeah, it was the Spanish, and they named the place after King Philip. And even after the Philippines eventually gained its independence, they decided that they didn't want to actually change the name. They kept the Philippines and they are still called Filipinos to this day. Now, during World War, the second one, again, because if you say certain phrases on YouTube, it can push it down in the algorithm, let's just say. Anyways, during that second kerfuffle, the United States had been a major ally to the Philippines. In fact, a lot of people in the Philippines love America more than many Americans do. It's even been considered that maybe the Philippines should become a state of the United States. Now, that would never happen because it's so close to China and the cultures are so different that there would be more than a little bit of difficulties with that. But the United States went in to basically remove the Japanese who had been occupying the island, and the Japanese were not gentle with the people there. Now, even to this day, we still have some issues in the Philippines. They have high crime. They have a lot of Yorkshire Terriers there, of the Islamic kind, and they also have a lot of crime. One thing also that they have is they have a very interesting sex trade. Um, there have been at least one or two, there have been a few cases where an American soldier that was visiting there on port call with like his unit ended up with a male man of the night and didn't realize that it was a male and ended up um, not being very happy about it upon discovery, thinking that, now that they're gay, they should probably hide the evidence. And, well, those people have been in jail there for a very long time, let's just say. Very dumb. Very, very dumb. But, anyways, again, I'm digressing a little bit. By the way, speaking of Vitaly, now that he has been arrested and it seems like he might be spending up to 10 to 20 years in prison for his crimes that he filmed, and the Philippines is not messing around because they saw what Johnny Somali did to both South Korea and Japan. Well, now Vitaly is facing jail time. Now, I can't really tell you exactly what he was doing, but I think he threatened somebody, and he was supposedly joking. It's just a prank, bro. Well, the Philippines has high crime, and they're very arrest happy, and they don't like foreigners coming around messing with their people. Now, it seems like he's going to be waiting a long time for his trial, up to 2 years, because there's so many criminals there that it's going to take a very long time for them to actually prosecute anybody. It actually got so bad that the president of the Philippines actually put out a hit on all the Yorkshire Terriers in the country, basically saying, happy hunting, go have some fun, and you won't be punished if you do it. In fact, we will give you an award, I think they even offered. So, yeah, civilians are basically at war with the Yorkshire Terriers in the Philippines, which I guess is the same sometime on prosecution, since they have regular criminals they have to deal with on a regular basis, including a lot of foreigners. And since they don't have a lot of prisons there, or their prisons are now full to capacity by 400% in some cases, they shove so many people into a tiny small box that basically people are like cuddling in the place because there's no room for them to sleep on their own. Filipino prisons are not very good places to be, let's just say. And this is something Vitaly really should have looked into. And he's even been completely disowned by the Russian government. Not surprising, honestly. But hey, it is what it is. Anyways, did you know that supposedly in the Philippines, you are allowed to get out of jail early as long as you earn a college degree while in prison. Supposedly, they'll let you out early if you get that diploma and if you use it in order to better the Philippines. Say you get a degree in engineering, they'll let you out. You have to become a Filipino citizen, I think, and you have to get a job and be able to hold down that job because they're so desperate for uh, people with very good educations to help fix the place. So maybe that'll happen with Vitaly if that's still a thing that's going on, but you never know. Anyways, we're moving on from that. A lot of little details there. Anyways, next we're going to talk about Johnny Somali. Now, if you don't know Johnny Somali, he's a complete moron who has decided to go around to different Asian countries and abuse their polite cultures. Now, I'm not saying that being in an Asian country necessarily has benefits in terms of being polite. After all, people in, say, Japan never like to question authority. In fact, one of the traditions in Japan is when you work for a major company, that the major company will hire an American, and the American is there to tell the boss when he's being an idiot. Specifically to tell him that, hey, what you're about to implement in this company is really stupid and you should not do it, you moron. That sounds ridiculous, but people in Japan are so polite and they're so, well, not, I'm not going to say submissive, but they respect authority a lot, especially somebody who is their senior. People are probably screaming senpai at their phones or at their computers right now, but really that is a huge part of their culture. And because they're always polite and because they always respect authority, this is exactly how a lot of them were convinced to, you know, give their lives for the empire during that second kerfuffle I mentioned earlier. So there are downsides to it because they got really fanatical during that. And I would talk about the history of Japan, but look up the history of Japan, I guess, which is the actual name of the title. The entire history of Japan, I guess, is the title of the video. Very good video, explains it relatively well. There's some things around years before the second kerfuffle, near the Great War period, that it doesn't really touch upon. Uh, Basically, on how they came about their version of, oh god, what's it called? I would say it's not the right term, but chivalry. Basically, the way that they actually Bushido. That's it, Bushido. The version of Bushido that they were using during the second kerfuffle was a complete bastardization of what Bushido actually meant to the samurai, and really Bushido didn't even uh, wasn't even applicable to people who were not samurai, and they were applying it to everybody during the second kerfuffle. Anyways, enough criticism of Asia. They are very polite people, and you have to remember that there are benefits to that. There's also downsides. For example, when some random foreigner comes around and starts playing Nagasaki and Hiroshima over and over again, mocking people in Japan for having their ancestors completely and utterly erased from existence by two bombs. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the whole morality of dropping the bombs or anything like that, but basically it's a sore spot for many Japanese people. And they're also having people going to Japan stealing stuff from stores who don't have any clerks, because there you can go to a store, there's stuff that is sitting on like shelves, you can take it, bring it up to the cash register, you check yourself out, and you pay for it. This is the kind of stuff that, like, colleges and many businesses throughout America use. But there's entire stores in Japan that do this. And this is actually because it's such a high trust society that nobody will steal anything from the store. But when they're having like foreigners and other people who are getting a little bit more brazen coming around stealing stuff, now they actually have to hire people to watch the stores. Doing this kind of nuisance streaming and other stuff. Now, I'm not sure if Johnny Somali was stealing. I'm pretty sure he was doing something similar to that, but he at the very least was harassing people and he was making them uncomfortable, saying very sexual things to people and making them very uncomfortable, making it seem like he was going to do something to them, if you know what I mean. Anyways, he was eventually caught, forced to apologize, and then basically he was sorta pseudo deported. I think he was actually deported, and he has a ban, like a 2-year ban of ever going to Japan. But basically, for Japan, they can refuse travel from anyone coming into the country. And looking at his record and what he did in other countries, it's likely that Somali will never be allowed back in Japan if he will ever have the opportunity to do so. He also went to Israel and said a whole bunch of very interesting things to them, and Israel also basically just allowed him to skate off scot-free. And then he decided to go to South Korea. He started making out with a statue of a little girl, which represents the women and children who were brutally abused by the Japanese during the Second Kerfuffle. Abused sexually. He also went around and started making AI videos of him making out with a South Korean streamer, which, if you're not aware, making AI content is illegal in South Korea. Distributing AI content is illegal in South Korea. And since it's him kissing the South Korean girl, which, again, created by AI, these two were not in a relationship. In fact, she hates Somali. It's also now a sex crime. He has also chased people around with a fish. He has also been harassing people on the street, threatening them, playing very interesting messages, sexual messages around children using a text-to-speech device. He has gone on dating apps or chat streams that, those chat programs that randomly match you up with somebody in the world, and specifically tried hitting on every single minor that he could. Again, I don't know if he's actually attracted to children. I think he's literally just trying to make people as uncomfortable as possible, trying to see how much he could get away with. Well, he has now been charged with at least 6 crimes and has pled guilty to 4 of them. And every time he is released, and I would go watch Nux Anar for a lot of this, but it's a lot of videos to go through, so I'm just giving a brief lowdown on it, is a lot of the stuff he has been charged with, he's already pled guilty to, and now he's being charged with a crime that has a mandatory jail sentence. Now, if you don't know, in South Korea, they have prison labor, and that prison labor includes picking vegetables, literally working on a farm. And Johnny Somali, if you can't tell by the name, named himself after Somalia, because he's black. Vitaly's not black, by the way, but Somali is. and you're about to have a guy be sent to prison and forced to pick vegetables. South Korea is very pissed. They are very, very angry, and for very good reason, because he is going after children. He is abusing their kindness. He has shown constant disrespect to the South Koreans. I almost said South Africans because I'm still thinking about that whole apartheid thing that I talked about yesterday. And he has even disrespected both the police, gone to them and demand that they return stuff that they took away from him after he got arrested. He has threatened the police. He has threatened to spread AIDS to the people of South Korea and any other venereal diseases he may have, which I don't want to know if he has any. I don't care. I have this distinct feeling that he is especially unfuckable and he doesn't have anything. But God, I feel bad for whatever woman who might have slept with him. He has gone to court wearing his best friend's suit, a white suit, I think, or his best friend wore the white suit, I don't remember. And he kept wearing a MAGA hat because he wants Trump to save him, and he also wants to take off every single Trump supporter in the country because he wants as many people to talk about him as possible. And while I'm feeding into that, I just really want to talk about on how amazing his comeuppance is right now. It is the best thing. It is absolutely hilarious what is happening to him. Anyways, I digress. He is screwed. He is absolutely 125% screwed. Actually, if you listen to Nuxanar, honestly, I don't know how to pronounce that. I listen to him all the time. Just call him Nux. He's 900% screwed, and when he's 1000% screwed, he'll be in prison. And I have this distinct feeling that they're not going to go easy on him. Now, Legal Mindset has also talked about him, as has Yellow Flash. Those are two guys that I really like to watch. If you want more information, go watch them. Absolutely insane. Insane stuff. Anyways, let's move on. We're going to talk about Kirsche. Now, if you don't know who Kirsche is, she's this VTuber. Now, she's somebody I find a little bit cute, but, well, she is a good friend of one of my favorite YouTubers, which is Arch Warhammer. Now, I have a whole thing on Arch that I need to talk about at some point. That video is definitely going to be downgraded in the algorithm because I have to talk about how he talked to a man called the Golden One and interviewed him, which basically set off this whole series of dominoes that put Arch on the path to becoming one of the rates, or at least the center's, most rational voices in Europe, along with Sargon of Akkad. But not going into that. Kirsche is a VTuber, and she has been, well, she claims to be conservative, and I would say she is conservative. Now, she doesn't have a boyfriend or anything, and not, but I think she has talked about wanting to be a mother. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, she's basically very based and always talks against a lot of the more crazy leftist things going on. Now, she also plays video games, as being a VTuber usually do. And she has been very highly critical of Hassan Piker and other people like him. And like anyone else who goes after Hassan Piker, his fan base goes rabid and tries to destroy the lives of everyone around him. Now, I have to include Ana Valens in this. Ana Valens basically decided that Kirsche is a mid-century German of some sort or another, and basically has tried to cancel her. In fact, she wrote a hit piece on her, and God, it's so dumb. It's just so dumb. Basically, trying to get her to be removed from being paid by some video game company. She had Kirsche was very into this video game and was basically doing free promotion for it. And she was doing such a great job bringing eyes to the whole uh, to the company that they started to pay her for it. Well, a lot of her fans also started to get into the game, and once Valens, got her canceled and dropped by the company, basically all Kirsche's fans went out who played the game and changed the reviews to negative and started to downgrade it, complaining to the company that they had been not tricked but bullied into canceling somebody who is actually a really sweet person. Kirsche may have a mouth on her, but she is an incredibly nice person. She's somebody I would like to talk to at some point in my life, but that's not besides the point. In fact, Ana Valens is so crazy, such a rabid leftist, that one of my favorite YouTubers who is also involved related to Arch Warhammer is Ace1918, named after, obviously, Aces from 1918, the Great War. And he looked into Ana Valens, her history and what she said, and basically saw stuff there that is highly concerning. Let's just say she may be alleged homegrown Yorkshire Terrier. Let's just go like that. Now, at least encouraging homegrown Yorkshire Terrierism. Okay? He has reported her to the FBI. That is how serious it's gotten. Just absolutely insane. Now, I'm going to tell you that I'm not more than a little bit amused by all this. It's just absolutely insane the lengths people will go to try to destroy the lives of those who give relatively moderate takes, all things considered. Now, Kirsche said more than some moderate stuff, but you have to remember she's a VTuber. She does a lot of jokes. Like, not everything she says is serious. And the stuff Ana Valens says, she is very much serious on the kinds of things she's been saying. I would go look it up if I were you. It is nasty. Nasty stuff. Now, into one of my most hated subjects. There is a man by the name of Dev, also known as Short Fat Otaku, claiming to be an enlightened centrist of the left-leaning variety. He reminds me much of myself when I was younger, but many, many, many times more delusional and completely and utterly crazy. Now, his history is long and hard to explain. I don't exactly know where he came from, but this also relates to Arch Warhammer. Dev is a friend, probably not much longer, a friend of Arch and Sargon of Akkad. Now, when Arch was cancelled, which again, it's a whole thing that I'll get into at some point, but I'm not going to get into it here. One of the few people who stood beside him was Dev, who again, left-leaning centrist by his own admission. I don't believe he's left-leaning anymore. I think he's far, far, far left at this point. But Dev has caused a lot of issues in the past. Now, if you don't know about him, his opinions have gotten relatively insane, and he can never ever admit that he is wrong about anything. Now, he supported the imprisonment and shutting off the bank accounts of the truckers, for one. That was basically when he started to go proper crazy. He's also gone very Trump deranged over time, saying that anything and everything that the left does is totally excusable because Trump is simply worse. This is a Canadian we're talking about here, by the way. People who just elected somebody even worse than their old prime minister. Oh, Canada is so dumb. It is so dumb. And Dev is so dumb. I would watch art streams, and whenever Dev came on, he always said the most ignorant, stupid, easily refuted crap possible. He looked at all the court cases against Trump and basically just believed them, just because the accusations themselves were enough for him to see Trump as guilty. He didn't want to hear any defense for him. He didn't want to talk about anything in regards to what to anything that could, paint the Democrats or the media in a negative light for even bringing these stupid charges against Trump in the first place. No, it got to the point where I was so frustrated with him that I outright challenged him to a debate, and I told him I wouldn't prepare whatsoever. What we would do is we would go through the different charges one by one. I hadn't really looked at them, but I knew a lot of information about what had happened and exactly why they wanted to throw him in jail, and also the stuff they were accusing him of. But I didn't necessarily look through every single charge line by line. And I told him what we would do is we would go through the charges and I would refute them as we went, explaining my opinions and basically saying why it was all BS. Now, in a very generalistic explanation, I suppose, is I knew what the cases were generally about, and I listened to a lot of videos on them, and I formed my own opinion on exactly why they were doing this, and why these charges had been brought, and why they were BS. Again, I know a lot of information on the actual cases themselves, but one thing I didn't bother to actually do was actually read the charges verbiage, because, well, that's a lot of work for something that I already know is BS, for one, but for two, the verbiage on those was specifically worded in such a way to paint the guy accused as being guilty, where you actually have to look at the facts of the case. So I knew what the cases were generally about, and I knew the defense of the cases. Now, there was some whataboutism that I was going to engage in, talking about, how Hillary Clinton destroyed her servers and her employees destroyed their cell phones with hammers in order to make sure that the data recovered. Well, it was impossible to recover the data, basically. And also talking about how Joe Biden had done the exact same thing that Trump was accused of, and yet Biden got away scot-free, even though Trump, as the President of the United States, is allowed to bring in is allowed to bring home classified documents and declassify them. Also, how Bill Clinton did the same thing when he was in office. The problem is that only works for the president. Or if the president allows, like, say, the vice president to take home documents, he can declassify the documents for the vice president. Joe Biden, on the other hand, had documents all the way back from his Senate days, which is highly illegal. And the fact that the president was not being charged I'm talking about President Biden, was not being charged by his own DOJ that, again, his DOJ that he controlled. Well, let's just say that the writing was on the wall, and I knew the cases were BS based on the double standards that were going on. Dev defended every single one of it. He will take every left-leaning, insane opinion possible. There are examples that I can give. I can't think of some of the most egregious off the top of my head. He has defended Kirsche being canceled, basically. Sorta. He has done a whataboutism, saying that Kirsche's fans changing their reviews of that video game is a form of cancel culture, and them refusing to buy the game is also a form of cancel culture, which is absolutely insane. You don't have to buy a game. It's not cancel culture to not want to buy a product. If you don't want the product, you don't buy it. That's not trying to cancel the product. Also, you can make your own reviews on a game. Now, trying to bully people into not buying the game, or trying to force people or dox people for playing the game, that would be canceling. That is not what was going on. That is not what's going on. What's going on are people changing their opinions on the actions of the makers of the game, saying that they shouldn't play, basically saying people shouldn't play this game because the people who made the game are not principled. They will throw away one of their greatest assets, one of their greatest advertisers, simply on the word of some crazy socialist leftist. Ugh. That's not canceling. A lot of people that I talk to on the Arch Discord absolutely hate Dev, including Arch's moderation team. It is the consensus among us that Dev is going to viciously backstab Arch at some point, and that Arch should really stop talking to this dude because he's absolutely batshit insane. Again, he kind of reminds me of my ignorant self from back in the day, but again, his delusions and his inability to ever be wrong is just grating. Both me and Ace 1918 have challenged him to a debate, and he has dodged it on every single occasion. And he knows about it too. I have reminded him several times. Ace has reminded him several times that he just wants a debate, and he has not done it. Because he's scared, because he can't argue his point with somebody who will give him actual pushback. One of Dev's best friends, by the way, is a person who has a very interesting condition. And this is a condition that Ana Valens also has, and somebody I knew who got removed from the military. This condition is a paranoid fear that they are actually very attracted to children. Yes, one of Dev's best friends is a person who is terrified that they may be attracted to children. Ana Valens is also such a person. Now, guilt by association and all of that, but let's just say that this friend of Dev's has also said some very interesting things about the Chinese people. Things that would get you arrested in Britain if you said. Not that that means much, mind you, given how insane Britain has gotten, but let's just say stuff that Dev was not comfortable with. And yet he still hangs out with this person. You'll notice the way I said person there. Because I think it's also a trans person, I believe. Don't quote me on that, though. This is a very strange individual. I don't even remember their name, and I don't want to know them. I do not want to know them whatsoever. Well, let's just say that Dev's fans, if there are many of them, have gotten very similar to Hassan's fans. And when you refuse, on every occasion, to rein in your fans, or condemn people who claim to be your fans who are doing awful things. For instance, one of the more egregious things that Dev has said is that he doesn't care if a PDF file comes into his Discord, as long as they're not doing anything illegal inside of his Discord. I should remind you that when you're in a Discord with somebody, you are able to very generally, usually, DM anybody. You're allowed to send a private message to anyone you share a Discord with, which means that similar to, who was it? Was it Destiny? I don't want to get this wrong. I'm trying to think. No, it wasn't Destiny. It was Harry Sisson. Harry Sisson had a guy in his Discord, another content creator. And I guess I'll put a little note here for that. Harry Sisson had a guy in his Discord who was DMing somebody a little bit too young. We're talking about a 15-year-old saying very interesting things to them. Another content creator, a female, called out this person. They had been informed by the 15-year-old that, again, this is a 15-year-old who is autistic, being hit on by a grown man in DMing this kid. And this kid tells a female streamer on what this dude is doing. Harry Sisson decided that he was supposed to, do something about this after being told by the female streamer, and played defense for the guy, not reporting him, not cutting him off. In fact, the guy had put Harry as his emergency contact. Now, I have mentioned this before, but, well, let's just say, nasty stuff. Actually, I'm going to erase that little timestamp. I don't need that. Basically, what Dev is saying by allowing PDFs into his Discord is he's okay with them being in there as long as they don't do anything illegal in front of him. They can do whatever illegal stuff behind his back and DM all his followers if they so choose to. Now, that is not what Dev was actually saying, but he is defending this position knowing that this is something that would and could happen if he had a PDF in his chat. That they could start just messaging every single underage person in his chat, because Dev also allows underage people into his Discord. Basically, he's willing to put his chat in danger. I want to tell you that I despise Dev. Very much so. And for very good reason. This is absolutely 100% horrific, disgusting, that he would even defend this. And when called out on anything, he will always double and triple down. He will never admit he's wrong. And he was called out on this, and he doubled and tripled down. And whenever he is hit with an argument that he can't refute, he stops responding. He pretends it doesn't exist, despite the fact that it's clear that he has read the message. He does this everywhere, because when he is proven wrong, he just pretends he never saw it, because he's a coward. And let's just say that his name, Short Fat Otaku, has been used heavily against him as being a very accurate description of him. What was supposed to be a self-deprecating name is now just a complete insult to him. Which is why he often just goes by Dev. But we always like to make sure that, he's reminded of his actual name. Anyways, before I just go into complete and utter insanity right now, I think I'm going to call it there. Goodbye, guys.